Hi guys, this is Jason Zach from Nathaniel School of Music. In this music theory lesson, we are going to look at how you can form any scale under the sun with three perspectives or from three schools of thought, if you will. First of all, we are going to pick a key. Then we are going to look at a scale. So a key and a scale is very different. You can check out a video in the description where I explore the difference between a key, a scale, a raga, as well as a mode. So do check that out. But in this particular video, we are going to just take a key, which is one of the 12 we have in music, the 7 whites or the 5 blacks. We'll also pick a scale, which maybe we don't know. So definitely major and minor will not be there. And then we will apply the principle on pretty much any other scale which you find new, you're working on, and maybe you're confused with the key or maybe you're confused with the scale, because a key to form the major scale on a particular key might be tricky for you, or to form a random scale on an easy key like C might still be tricky for you. So let's look at three perspectives to form pretty much any scale in life. So I'm going to take the key of C for everyone's benefit, not for mine because I'm not so much of a C fan, but I've realized that over the years we have been enemies, me and C. So I'm trying to change that, hopefully this 1 year. After that, we may go back to being enemies. So if I want to look at a mode, Dorian, for example, C Dorian, I want to form that, but I want it to result in the same solution but with respect to different things, so that I can see, okay, do I know it from here? Do I know it from here? And then with all those trial and error methods or those different methods, I can arrive at one unified answer and I know my answer is spot on, so to speak. And then over time, you can see what works for you. Also, depending on the scenario, you might need all these perspectives depending on the real world scenarios you find yourselves in. So first off, C Dorian with respect to the major scale. C major, all the white keys formed with, two steps, one step, two steps, two steps, finally one step. So the one step will occur between the leading tone and the tonic, BC, and also between the median, that's the third note, and the subdominant, that's the fourth. So the 4 tends to want to lead to the 3 and the 7 tends to want to go to the tonic or the octave of the tonic, if you want to call it that. So C Dorian with respect to major, you need to remember the process. It would be a case of flattening or sharpening certain notes or certain pitches of the scale you already know, which you have under the radar, namely C major. So if you are certain of C major, which can be a tricky scale at times if you ask me, if you get your hold over the scale C Dorian, what it will do, the formula will tell you flat the third and flat the 7. Flat the third, flat the 7. So what does flattening mean? Flattening does not mean go to that third note and go and write flat. Neither does sharpening mean that. Sharpening doesn't mean go to the fourth and write sharp, just as a formality. It's not going to do the trick. You have to flatten things by going down, by lowering, going down a chromatic step, or what most people call as a semitone in music. Okay, it's a confusing word, but semitone is the shortest measurable distance, at least on a piano, because you have these fixed 12 pitches which you can't really bend much like a violin players and guitar players can. So assuming semitone is the shortest, some of them call it a half step for that and a whole step for a tone. I just tend to say closest chromatic note from here, or closest pitch from here tends to vibrate better for me with a more logical brain. Now, if you take the E, and when I say flatten the E, what was the Dorian formula again? Flat 3, flat 7. If you take the E, flat the third, what's going to happen? You're going to move down a step. That is essentially what flattening means. Move down a step, and if the resultant note after moving down a chromatic step or a semitone happens to be a black note and it happens to be E flat, you call it E flat. So that would be the E flat of the Dorian, or the 3 flat as we call it. So what else does Dorian have? The remainder is same as major. However, the 7th degree is not the leading tone, it's the flat 7. Okay, also called as the subtonic. That's your B flat, flat 7. Intervallically we say minor 7th. So what ended up happening? You took the 7, you moved it, you lowered it down a chromatic step or a semitone. B becomes B flat. In some cases, F could be lowered to get E. So you shouldn't get confused with flattening. In some cases, if you do F, white note, what happens when you flatten the F? F flat is actually another white note, E. Or in some cases, if you might have a black note, F sharp. What happens when you flatten the F sharp? Sounds a bit weird, but flattening, remember, is lowering the note. When you flatten the F sharp, you're going to get yourself a good old F. Flatten the F sharp to give yourself an F. So, C Dorian, what were the things which contrasted or differentiated from the major? The flat 3 and the flat 7. It's good to remember it this way, because if you're used to major and if you're playing on Dorian, you definitely need these 2 notes to make it sound like a Dorian scale. If you're playing a song and saying it's on Dorian and you never ever use the important representing Dorian notes, well, it's going to sound something like this. It's a bit obscure. You don't know what it is, but if you add those important notes, it starts sounding very Dorian. Also explore the intervals between the notes, not just linear, You can do explore the skips. Okay, so that's your C Dorian, very useful scale. It has a very brave sound, and to explore Dorian further, we have a very, very detailed video using some of my compositions which I've done on Dorian. Do check that out in the description. So, we found the Dorian with respect to the major. That definitely gets us to acknowledge the uniqueness of the scale. What if we know minor? What if you know C minor? C natural minor. So let's say you happen to know this scale, and if you don't know C minor, you know that it's the 6th degree, or it is the relative minor of some major. Which major scale is C minor a relative of? It's the scale from which you get C as the 6th. So E flat's 6th is C minor. So you can actually, in any case, we have different ways to form minor scales also. One with respect to major. You flat the 3, you flat the 6, you flat the 7. The other way is respect to the parent major scale, where we say it has the same key signature. In other words, the same sets of notes, but you will have to start it from the 6th degree of some major scale. So anyway, minor, if you don't know C minor, remember, it could have come from E flat major. So, E flat major 6th is C. Now, anyway, let's say you know C minor, which I'm sure you do, and you want to form C Dorian. So, you tell yourself, okay, C Dorian will be formed by raising. This is where they use the word raising. By raising the 6th degree, or the 6th note, or the 6th scale note with respect to C minor. So in the C natural minor scale, that's your 6th flat. Dorian will raise that. So in this case, raising would mean sharpening. But then A flat, when sharpened or when raised, when you go up a step, this is where you might fall into that confusion. Don't go and write A sharp. No. A flat, when you go up 2, A sharp will be a tone. It will be 2 steps. So up 1, when you raise it by 1, plus 1, you're going to get A. So A flat when raised becomes A. So natural minor, Dorian. So we ended up with the same set of notes, but from another perspective. So if you're composing a song pretty much on C minor, but when you don't give the opportunity for the 6th to be played, like the pentatonic scale, right? The pentatonic scale doesn't have the 6, so it's a very unambiguous scale. It can be used for anything. But if you want to commit to an emotion, see, that would be natural minor because I played the minor 6th. There's a lot of pain in the natural minor. Little bit of hope if you use some of those major chords. While the Dorian has a lot of hope because of that brave movement between the tonic and the predominant or the 4th chord, which is now major. You know, that's minor. So we have a resource on our Riff website which can help you contrast this information a lot more. We leave a few links in the description. So you will have a list of some of my compositions on the natural minor, some of them on the harmonic minor, some of them on the Dorian as we are learning now, a few of them on the melodic minor, and some of them on a couple of minors which even I don't know. I call them the hybrid minor, which even I don't know what it is officially called. You can help me with that. And we also have something called as the exotic minor. So there are a bunch of scales in there which you can research and get a grasp of the sound with some actual real world music composed by me. So I use Dorian a lot, and I tend to like that minor 3rd resolving to the major 6th. But I resolve to the major 6th via the flat 7. So it also helps greatly once you form the scale somehow, figure out where your half steps and your whole steps are, or figure out where it's just 1 chromatic between and 2 chromatic. So in the Dorian, where is the half step? Between the 2 and the 3 flat, correct? And also between the 7 flat, B flat, and its 6th normal, which is A. So for all you know, that movement is very common. Similarly, so these half step movements, these 2 half steps are there in Dorian, which makes it very, very important as a composer. You'll be using those a lot melodically. Anyway, I digress. I have to come back to how you can form the Dorian using one more method, and that is using the concept of modes, where if you think about it, if you've learned a bit of classical music theory, you've already learned a bit of modes right there. You've figured the key signature, the circle of fifths. What does that tell us? Every major scale has a relative minor. You can flip that around and say every minor scale has a relative major, if you feel minors should get all the glory, so to speak. So if a minor scale is formed as the 6th degree from every major scale, then it begs to ask the question, what about the other degrees? What about the 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, 5th degree, 7th degree? Okay, so in a major scale context, the Dorian will always be the 2nd degree from any major root. So if you look at C Dorian, you ask yourself a simple question: which major scale has C as the 2nd note or the 2nd degree? It's a bit tricky because if I asked you what is the second from C, you'll probably say D. But which note's second note, or which roots, or which tonic second note, major second, is C? The answer to that is B flat major, isn't it? But if you play B flat major with B flat rooted, it has the C. It doesn't sound C Dorian, right? Because of the B flat in the bass. But if I do C in the bass, even if I play B flat major, you've moved into another dimension. You've moved into the world of Dorian. So you might as well acknowledge that and develop your music alongside the unique notes, giving respect to the root, of course, the important notes as well as the unique notes, stable, unstable. You've changed your mood, but it's important to know that you can find the Dorian just like you find minors. So if I were to say C Dorian is the second degree of the B flat major. Now if I tell myself I want to now do some other Dorian, let's say D Dorian. D Dorian would be the second degree of what? C, D, correct? C major second note is D. So if you play C major starting on D, of course you have to work on the sound aspect, but just the notes tell us that the Dorian is the second degree from C major. The Phrygian is the third degree from C major. Lydian is the fourth degree from C major. It has a very bright sound because of the sharp 4. G Mixolydian is the fifth degree. That's your Aeolian and that's your natural minor. We call the natural minor sometimes Aeolian because in modally that's the name they give it. And lastly, the Locrian. Very tense, that's your 7th degree. So from that aspect, the Dorian would be the second degree. Now even if you have a scale which you might not know, let's say a scale like the Phrygian dominant or some such thing, which could be, you can always equate this to some scale that you might know and it would be the mode of that particular scale. The Phrygian dominant would end up being the 5th degree or the 5th mode of the F harmonic minor scale. So the F harmonic minor scale, its 5th degree would end up being the C Phrygian dominant scale. And similarly, a scale which I love to use, the Mixolydian flat 6 scale. So the C Mixo flat 6, just like the word Mixolydian tends to mean, it's the 5th mode of what? F melodic minor. So if you know your parent scales and if you enhance your vocabulary or library of your parent scales, move from major to the harmonic minor and then the melodic minor, these three parents will give you a ton of other scales. You'll have so many to deal with. It may actually end up being too much at the moment, sometimes as composers. So you can even stick with the major modes, which are 7. So you get 7 for the price of learning one scale. And to explore this concept further, check out some of my theory and composing videos on how to use modes. Very important chapter in music as you go forward from just your traditional major and minor scales. Right, guys? So we've thus looked at 3 perspectives from which you can form pretty much any scale in music. The 3 perspectives are A with respect to major, B with respect to minor, and C with respect to a modal family, where the tonics second, in the case of Dorian, it would be the second from a major. With respect to the major scale, you flatten the 3 and the 7. With respect to any major scale, you'll get Dorian. And with respect to minor, you raise the sixth. And similarly, they say harmonic minor, you raise the seventh. I think they should say you raise the seventh with respect to the natural minor. I don't think they have space to write all that, but that's the truth, isn't it? Harmonic minor, you have a flat 3, you have a flat 6, and you have a normal major 7th. Then why do these people say raise the 7th? I guess it's because of the natural minor. So anyway, hope you found the lesson useful. I hope it clarified a few things or a few doubts that you might have had. And do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and any of those buttons you find there which might help our channel grow. Right, guys? Thanks a ton. The notes are waiting for you on our Patreon page. Do consider heading over there as well and looking at the different tiers. You have different options to learn music from me as well. You can do private classes, you can do workshops, and a bunch more. Cheers, and catch you in the next one.